For over 4.5 decades, Star Wars has introduced us to countless beloved characters in its movies and TV shows. And behind the vast majority of characters that appear on screen is a talented actor. But sometimes these actors are so talented that their awesomeness can't be contained within a single role, even in the Star Wars universe. So what I wanted to do was to take a look at some of the actors who have actually had a chance to play multiple roles within the Star Wars franchise. And to keep things interesting and manageable, I decided to mostly stick to characters that either debuted or are primarily associated with being in live action. So if you were coming into this video with any actor in mind, there's a good chance that it was Warwick Davis.
Don't tell me what it is.
That's a lamb bollock.
To my count, Warwick Davis has played a combined total of 16 individual roles within the Star Wars franchise, which is the most of any other actor to date. Obviously, the one that he's most associated with is an Ewok named Wicket, which he first played when he was only 12 years old. Wicket is the most prominently featured Ewok in Return of the Jedi. He gets to share a one-on-one scene with Carrie Fisher, and he later goes with the Rebels when they launch an attack on the Imperial base. Wicket is also the main character of the Saturday morning cartoon series that aired in the 80s, although Warwick Davis didn't have anything to do with that. He did, however, reprise his role in both of the made-for-TV Ewok adventure movies that were released in 1985 and 1986. Although he's not quite as prominent, Warwick Davis actually plays 4 different characters in The Phantom Menace. First, and most obvious, is Anakin's Rodian friend Wald. Wald is not Greedo. Don't be racist. However, in this deleted scene, it's revealed that Wald and Greedo are actually friends, so take that as you will. Wald shows up in a couple of scenes with the other kids.
Oh, no, you're okay, Annie.
And even joins Kitster and the droids as Anakin's pit crew during the pod race. Warwick Davis's other fairly prominent character in The Phantom Menace allowed him to actually show his face on screen for the very first time in Star Wars. This is a character named Weasel, who's shown to be a scumbag friend of Watto. He also, apparently, played this blink and you'll miss it Tatooine street trader named Grimy.
How is old Grimy?
This is a background character that only appears in a single shot. However, Warwick's most interesting role in The Phantom Menace is actually a well-known character who is usually associated with another performer, and that character is Yoda. Yes, for one single shot in the film, Yoda was not portrayed with a puppet or CGI. For the shot where he has to walk down the ship's ramp in the background, he was actually played by Warwick Davis in a little costume. But believe it or not, this was not the first time that Yoda had been played by a human actor in a suit. This actually also happened in The Empire Strikes Back, where he was portrayed this way by an actor named Deep Roy. Surprisingly, Warwick Davis did not appear in either Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith. He did return to the Star Wars universe in 2015's The Force Awakens, where he played a character named Walaven, one of the many aliens in Maz Kanata's castle.
Han Solo!
And yep, that's all he does. Davis has become a permanent part of the Lucasfilm family since The Force Awakens, and has appeared in a lot of stuff after Disney purchased the company. In Rogue One, he plays an ally of Saw Gerrera who's named this. I'm not gonna even try to say that one. During the 4th season of Star Wars Rebels, Warwick Davis had his first opportunity to perform a voice-over only role within the Star Wars universe.
I smell it.
You smell what?
I smell the sat.
This character's name is Ruck, and he actually recently reprised this same role in Tales of the Empire on Disney+. Warwick continued the pattern of cameos in the live-action movies by playing a character named Wadabin on Canto Bight in The Last Jedi. He was also going to play this fat little weirdo named Kedpin Shoklop, but this scene was deleted prior to the movie's theatrical release. The spin-off movie Solo: A Star Wars Story reunited Warwick Davis with director Ron Howard, who had previously directed Willow, Davis's first starring role from all the way back in 1988. Obviously, Ron Howard enjoyed having Warwick around on set because he actually plays at least 6 distinct characters throughout this movie. The first, and most prominent, was actually a reprisal of his role from The Phantom Menace. Davis's character Weasel appears unmasked towards the end of the film as a member of Enfys Nest's crew, showing that he had apparently given up his life of crime and joined the growing Rebel Alliance. On Corellia, in the first act of the movie, Warwick Davis played an alien dressed in a fairly traditional astronaut spacesuit. He also played a fighting droid in the tavern where Han and Lando play their first game of sabacc. During that card game, he played this character that kind of looks like a chinchilla, who's actually named Wameth, I guess? And Davis operated 2 droids on the planet of Kessel. In behind-the-scenes material, those droids are given the names W1EG5 and DDBD. And finally, in The Rise of Skywalker, Warwick Davis was able to reprise his original role one more time for a cameo where he was joined by his real-life son Harrison. He also plays a background resistance technician named Wizik Mazur. This character is a little hard to spot, but he shows up at least 3 times. The most obvious is in this scene where he's standing next to Chewbacca. And that's all of the documented Warwick Davis roles across the feature films in the Star Wars franchise. The thing is, though, there might actually be more than that, but I haven't been able to confirm any beyond these. As you've seen, they would occasionally just have him put on a costume and walk through the background of a shot. So honestly, who knows? He could be in every scene. Davis's roles usually make use of his short stature, and the majority of them are given names that begin with the letter W. Davis, who was again only 12 years old when he first played Wicket, actually stepped in for Kenny Baker, who was originally set to play the role, before he mysteriously came down with food poisoning the day of the shoot. Of course, Kenny Baker is most famous for playing R2-D2 in the first 6 Star Wars films, and for being a consultant on him for The Force Awakens. And despite the fact that Baker's role as the most prominent featured Ewok was taken over by Warwick Davis, he did still end up playing a different Ewok character, the one that steals the speeder and leads the scout troopers away. And yeah, his name is Paplu. Kenny Baker's co-star Anthony Daniels, who we all know for playing C-3PO in just about everything, has also made cameos as different characters over the years.
How do you do? My name's George. I'll be your director today.
Of course, Daniels originated the role of the protocol droid C-3PO in the original 1977 Star Wars film. He would go on to portray the droid in all 9 films of the Skywalker saga in various forms. And there are more than you might remember. So many that his role as C-3PO is almost like multiple roles in and of itself. In the original movie, the mostly gold C-3PO has a silver leg. Yes, that Mandela effect is true. And he also briefly loses an arm. Throughout the original trilogy, 3PO is generally very dirty and scuffed up. The in-universe explanation for that is that it's a dirty universe. Dirty universe, dirty droid, you know? But the real reason why C-3PO is not shiny is because if he was, you'd be able to see the film crew and all of their camera equipment reflected in his gold panels in every shot.
Folks, we need to clear the set, please. We've got a lot of reflection problems on C-3PO.
However, in the very last scene of A New Hope, C-3PO does get all shined up. They were just able to shoot him very carefully so that there were no harmful reflections. In The Empire Strikes Back, C-3PO is temporarily disassembled, which required Anthony Daniels to sever his own legs in order to fit into the costume. No, he only provides the voice here, obviously. In the prequel trilogy, C-3PO looks significantly different in each film, slowly becoming the droid that we recognize from the original trilogy. In The Phantom Menace, he's newly built and hasn't received his outer plating yet. This required someone to puppeteer a rig that was digitally removed in post-production. For The Phantom Menace, this puppeteer was actually not Anthony Daniels. He only provided the voice after the fact. In the next film, Attack of the Clones, 3PO's inner parts have been covered, but with utilitarian gray plates instead of his more familiar gold. Apparently, this suit was actually one of the same ones that was used for filming on The Empire Strikes Back, and it was just like spray painted gray, which kind of feels like it should be illegal.
So here's a clue. If you ever go up to the rusty 3PO, just scratch a bit, and you see his gold skin underneath.
Originally, though, C-3PO was supposed to still be uncovered when Anakin and Padme show up on Tatooine, and Padme was going to be the one that would put on his gray plates, giving her something to keep busy with while Anakin was off murdering an entire village.
There.
Not quite.
And this time, Anthony Daniels wanted to do the puppeteering himself, but this scene and concept was scrapped and those earlier scenes were reshot. For some sequences, Daniels was able to portray the character as he had in the original trilogy, on set and in a suit. However, a large portion of C-3PO's role in Attack of the Clones was created digitally, so Daniels only provided the voice. And there is a portion of the film where his head is swapped with a battle droid's head, which would have required a different vocal tone.
Die, Jedi dogs!
In Revenge of the Sith, C-3PO appears in his traditional golden form, but this time he actually gets to be shiny for the entire film, since technology had advanced enough to digitally remove any cameras or crew that would be reflected in his body.
This is the moment where we bite the bullet. We go for shiny and we do it.
This shot took about 2.5 to 3 days. Constant frame by frame painting, sampling from different areas. Eventually it's a combination of recreating each frame, sampling from a frame that's completed, until at the end you have the completed shot.
The character returned in The Force Awakens with Daniels again in the suit. You might have missed that though. He is kind of hard to recognize because of the red arm.
Oh, my dear friend, how I've missed you.
His arm is gold by the end of the film, and the captivating tale is covered in a supplemental comic book and the Lego Star Wars video game. He's normal, shiny 3PO in The Last Jedi and for most of The Rise of Skywalker, with the exception of a brief moment where he speaks the language of the Sith.
Only this blade tells. Only this blade tells.
I don't know for sure, but it sounds to me like that's still Daniels' voice, just modulated heavily. Anthony Daniels has historically been the cast member to reprise his role most often by far. Beyond the 9 films in the Skywalker saga, he portrayed C-3PO in the Holiday Special, all 3 original trilogy radio dramas, the 1980s cartoon, the Clone Wars, and Rebels, both iterations of Star Tours, including the French language version at Disneyland Paris,
Merci. Et bon voyage.
Rogue One, practically everything. Even a lot of non-canonical appearances like The Muppet Show, Sesame Street, stuff like that. I actually made a video that was a supercut with as many of them as I could possibly find, and I'm sure there are still some that I missed. But anyway, did you know that Anthony Daniels also played another droid in A New Hope? Apparently, he was also in the suit for this character. This droid was later named CZ3, and he's apparently a secretary droid who was seen wandering the streets of Mos Eisley. This same costume also appears in the Jawa Sandcrawler earlier in the film, but that's actually supposed to be a different droid. That one, which was not played by Anthony Daniels, is called CZ1. This same costume was used yet again in Return of the Jedi. That one has been named CZ4. The whereabouts of CZ2 are still a mystery, so let us know if you see him. Anthony Daniels got to show his face in an unmasked cameo in both Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, playing the same character in both movies. He first appears at the nightclub on Coruscant, where Anakin and Obi-Wan have followed Zam Wesell, and then he appears on the steps at the opera in the subsequent film. Daniels' character is apparently named Daniel Phaeton, which is a sort of phonetic rearranging of the name Anthony Daniels. Since there was no place for R2-D2 and C-3PO to make a cameo in the second anthology film, Solo, Anthony Daniels instead appears as a different character. His appearance is very brief this time. He plays a character named Tak, who's one of the slaves on the spice mine of Kessel. And that's kinda nice. I mean, not him being a slave, but because the inspiration for this scene, for this whole section of the movie really, actually comes from a line that Daniels spoke as C-3PO all the way back in the original Star Wars in 1977.
What are we going to do? We'll be sent to the spice mines of Kessel or smashed into who knows what.
Okay, so Mark Hamill is kind of an interesting one. And he's interesting because we know that he's played a lot of different roles, but he won't tell anyone what they are. So first, the obvious one. Mark Hamill played Luke Skywalker in the 3 films of the original trilogy, the Star Wars Holiday Special, the radio dramas for both A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, the sequel trilogy, the animated Forces of Destiny series, and Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy, which just released a couple of weeks ago. Some version of the character, with some involvement from Mark Hamill, also appears in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. Like, it counts, but it's not like all the other ones. But a lot of people don't know that Mark Hamill also had a minor second role in The Empire Strikes Back. This is actually his voice that you can hear making the announcement over the loudspeaker and echo bass.
The first transport is away. The first transport is away.
Sound mixes have changed over the years with the many different special editions and remasterings, so it's most obviously him in any post-1997 special edition audio mix. Before that, it was a much more modulated version of his performance.
The first transport is away. The first transport is away.
Officially, this announcement is made by a character named Romus Navander, who is this guy, I guess, elsewhere played by an actor named Burnell Tucker. And although you probably don't know his name, Burnell Tucker also played multiple roles within Star Wars. In addition to Romus Navander, he also plays another Echo bass controller named Wyron Serper. Yeah, apparently these are two different guys. I'm not sure why. He actually also appeared in A New Hope as a completely different character, later named Del Gorin. Okay, back to Mark Hamill. So he's not in the prequels at all, but Hamill, who had become a successful voice actor in the 90s and early 2000s, actually voiced Darth Bane in the 6th season of the Clone Wars.
Why do you come to my tomb, Jedi?
To learn.
Do you know who I am?
Yes. Darth Bane.
To create this unsettling voice, Hamill actually recorded the lines multiple times with different inflections. Then all of those takes were combined together and played all at once in the final episode. Despite his incredible talent as a voice actor, Mark Hamill was not asked to voice his own character in The Force Awakens. He did, however, record a secret voice cameo somewhere else in that movie, and no one knows exactly where it is. Well, I'm sure the people that put it in there know, but we don't.
Mark?
Oh, I'm sorry, I have dialogue? Yeah. I'm used to just staring intensely.
There's another secret cameo in Rogue One. The only clue that Hamill has given us is that he'll usually use one or both of his brothers' names in his second credit. The consensus for this one is that people think that he's hiding under the name of William M. Patrick, but where exactly his cameo is another story. I feel like it's generally accepted that he's either one of the voices on the intercom at the Rebel base on Yavin 4, or he's this thing, which would be awesome. Hamill also plays both Luke Skywalker and his twin brother Jake in The Last Jedi, and he also voices this little drunk alien in the Canto Bight Casino. Hamill provided the voice for the character and also performed his movement in a full motion capture suit with a large medicine ball standing in for BB-8. And his character's name is actually an anagram of the name of The Last Jedi's film editor. Hamill's cameo in Solo is also one of the ones that's still a mystery, although he is credited again as William M. Patrick. It's possible that he voices one of the masked characters in Enfys Nest's gang. I mean, that would make a lot of sense, but no one really knows for sure. In one episode of The Mandalorian, Mark Hamill actually provides the voice of EV-99, the bartender in the Mos Eisley Cantina.
Unfortunately, the Bounty Guild no longer operates from Tatooine.
I'm not looking for guild work.
I am afraid that does not improve your situation.
Funnily enough, this character was actually originally voiced by Richard Marquand, director of Return of the Jedi in Return of the Jedi. Finally, in The Rise of Skywalker, Hamill once again plays Luke Skywalker, both old and young, and he also voices the alien character Bulio, who appears early in the film.
Transfer the message. Get it to Leia. Hurry.
Beyond these canon appearances, Mark Hamill has played or voiced Luke Skywalker in a variety of spoofs and specials over the years, including a 1980 episode of The Muppet Show, where he played both Luke Skywalker and Mark Hamill as separate characters. He also hosted and narrated two of the main behind-the-scenes documentaries in the early 80s, SPFX The Empire Strikes Back, and From Star Wars to Jedi The Making of a Saga. And he also served as a sort of narrator, reading the slug lines and stage direction during the first full cast table read for the script of The Force Awakens.
Exterior Jakku Village night. BB-8 speeds. He beeps like crazy and moves on, heading for Poe Dameron 32.
We got company.
As our music builds, the promise of an adventure just beginning. The end.
Mark Hamill's original trilogy co-stars haven't appeared in multiple roles within the official Star Wars universe, but I like talking about these guys, and they do each have one additional vocal performance that's worth mentioning here. So, as you probably know, Carrie Fisher played Princess and later General Leia Organa in the 3 films of the original trilogy, the Star Wars Holiday Special, and the first 2 films of the sequel trilogy. Sadly, she passed away before production had begun on the 3rd, The Rise of Skywalker, but she does appear in that film through the use of heavily altered deleted footage from The Force Awakens. It doesn't look very good. Fisher did not voice the character in any radio dramas or official Lucasfilm animated series, but she did record additional lines for the LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens video game, and as part of a flashback sequence in The Rise of Skywalker, footage of her face that appears in Return of the Jedi was superimposed over Fisher's real-life daughter Billie Lourd's face. Of course, this was actually Billie Lourd's second role in Star Wars as well. She also played Lieutenant Connix in all 3 films of the sequel trilogy. Again, Carrie Fisher only ever appeared officially as Leia Organa, whether she agreed to or not, but she did actually voice Mon Mothma in a couple of Star Wars parodies, including as part of Family Guy, where technically she played her recurring character Angela, who's playing Mon Mothma.
I'd like to thank you all for meeting me here in the lobby of the Mondrian.
Hey, check it out, it's another chick. The only other chick in the galaxy.
I don't like her.
Harrison Ford played Han Solo in the 3 films of the original trilogy, the Star Wars Holiday Special, and 2 films of the sequel trilogy. His second sequel trilogy appearance was a surprise, and Ford is not credited in that film. He has generally been the least willing actor to reprise his role, although he did also record additional dialogue for that Force Awakens LEGO game.
King Prana wants full-grown Rathars. You ready for that, Chewie? Well, we'll find out soon enough.
And he made another unique vocal contribution to Star Wars. Ford recorded the voiceover narration for this iconic trailer for The Empire Strikes Back.
Luke Skywalker and Han Solo rescued the princess, destroyed the Death Star, but their story didn't end there.
He gives a pretty enthusiastic performance here, although he does stumble a little bit and it sounds like maybe he's reading his script for the first time.
And introducing Lando Calrissian.
Speaking of The Empire Strikes Back, this film introduces the fan favorite character of Boba Fett. Well, technically he appeared originally in the animated portion of the holiday special, but here he appears for the first time in live action. And that live action performance was done by a British actor named Jeremy Bulloch. Bulloch portrayed Boba Fett physically in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. The character's voice in The Empire Strikes Back was dubbed in by Jason Wingreen originally.
He's no good to me dead.
And later replaced by Tamara Morrison in all releases after 2004.
He's no good to me dead.
That's only 4 lines, by the way. But it's a credit to both of the voice actors. I prefer the original, although Morrison is pretty good too, and Bulloch's screen presence for making the character so beloved over the years. However, Bulloch did not reprise his role as the on-set performance for Boba Fett in the special editions, which inserted the character into A New Hope for the first time and increased his presence in Return of the Jedi. These new shots were actually performed by a couple of different ILM employees. Jeremy Bulloch was able to appear unmasked in The Empire Strikes Back as this Imperial officer, later renamed Lieutenant Shekel. Originally, Expanded Universe lore said that Shekel was the twin brother of a famous mercenary, in a nod to that dual role. This was trivia that was created, not by George Lucas, well before Boba Fett's official origins were established in Attack of the Clones. Since Bulloch could not portray Boba Fett in the prequels, he was given a small cameo role as the pilot of an Alderaanian cruiser in Revenge of the Sith.
We're receiving a message from the Chancellor's office, sir.
Send it through.
Yes, sir.
This character was apparently named Jeremock Colton, with his fictional first name being a kind of portmanteau of his real-life first and last name. Another actor who portrayed multiple roles in Star Wars is Silas Carson. Carson is an English actor who played 4 separate roles in The Phantom Menace, and reprised 2 of them in both subsequent prequels. He's actually one of the first people to appear in The Phantom Menace as Antidar Williams, pilot of the Republic starship that brings Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon to meet with the Trade Federation. He does not appear in the second or third film.
Captain, look!
Carson also played 2 Nemoidians in The Phantom Menace. One of them is Lot Dodd, who he did not voice. An actor named Toby Longworth voiced the character in the film, while Gideon Emery did so for his appearance in the Clone Wars animated series. Silas Carson also played Viceroy Newt Gunray. Viceroy Gunray appears in all 3 of the prequel films, portrayed physically and voiced by Carson each time. Finally, Carson played Jedi Master Ki-Adi Mundi, also known as the guy with the head. The process of putting Carson into the required prosthetics took as long as 4 hours, and George Lucas was initially unsure if he would keep Carson's voice or redub him with another actor. But his performance ended up winning George over, and his role was expanded in the next film.
What about the droid attack on the Wookiees?
Alright, I thought this would be a good one to end with. Ahmed Best is the talented and unfairly maligned actor who portrayed Jar Jar Binks. Best was cast for his physicality. He had previously been a part of the musical Stomp, and he portrayed Jar Jar Binks through motion capture and voice acting, starting in The Phantom Menace. The character appears in all 3 prequel films, but his role was greatly reduced each time due to the intense fan backlash to the character. While a fairly prominent member of the main ensemble in The Phantom Menace, Jar Jar is only featured in a small, but still pivotal, role in Attack of the Clones, and is practically non-existent in Revenge of the Sith, appearing in just 2 scenes and with only one single easy-to-miss line in the entire film.
Excuse me.
Best ultimately returned to voice the character in most of his appearances in the Clone Wars.
Hello? Let me sit through. Missa on a diplomatic mission. Senator Organa!
Although not for 3 episodes where he was substituted by B.J. Hughes, which just feels really, really wrong.
Those with good in their heart, always passing too soon.
Best proved to be a pretty good sport about Jar Jar's poor reception, and also returned to voice the character in several spoofs, including Robot Chicken and the official Lucasfilm spoof series Star Wars Detours, that was so terrible that it was cancelled before it ever aired.
Taxi, why everybody hate Misa?
Well, how honest do we want to get?
He also popped up in that LEGO Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy thing, which was a lot of fun. In Attack of the Clones, Ahmed Best appears in a cameo in the same sequence as Anthony Daniels. Like Daniels, whose character was given a name based on a jumbled up version of his own name, Best's character was dubbed Ahmed Beck. In addition to reprising his role as Jar Jar Binks in 7 episodes of The Clone Wars, Best also played fellow Gungan Boss Leone in 2 episodes.
Dumb things are telling me a big help you need, no?
He also voiced a Toydarian defense minister in one 3rd season episode, and a prisoner in the following season. As part of the recent rush in belated support shown for Ahmed Best's work in Star Wars, he was chosen to host Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge, a children's game show that was released on YouTube in 2020. While he's hosting this show, which kinda breaks the 4th wall and doesn't really feel like it's meant to be a part of the official canon, the Jedi character that Best plays, who's named Kelleran Beck, actually does cross over into the official universe, appearing in a flashback in an episode of The Mandalorian. So yeah, if you really like these scenes from The Mandalorian, you could watch the same character host a game show.
It's time to face your Jedi Temple Challenge.